of October. If it's all right now, I'd like to move back to where we were before. Questions 4, 5, and 6 all jointly put together. I believe Megan would like to come up and say something. And although she's not an OUSA member, I'd like to ask leave of the meeting. If anyone has an issue with her speaking, you can raise it now. Otherwise, let her speak. Thank you.
Yay, you're all letting me speak. You may regret that. A lot of you may be aware that OUSA has recently held a referendum and we have withdrawn from NZUSA. We have 3 main reasons for this, and I can put some, oh God, one coffee this morning, sorry guys. It's accountability within NZUSA, it's transparency, and it's proactive as well as reactive campaigning. Accountability. NZUSA has the same type of budget, about $600,000 as we do. 89% of that budget is on internal costs. It leaves less than $60,000 on the running of conferences, campaigning, and the rest of that. As where if you look at 10 years ago, $80,000 was put to campaigning alone. At the moment, the budget for the campaigning, for national campaigning for all of you guys, is less than $8,000. So that's a huge loss. So accountability, let's start showing you guys where our money is going. Let's have a financial management policy so they can't just make decisions to, oh, let's see, do a Price Cooper water, what everyone else is saying and I keep getting wrong, paper that costs $55,000 without actually putting it to a motion and without actually putting it through the FedEx properly. The other thing is transparency. If they make a decision to do something, it should be coming through the FedEx like it does at the executive. A good example of that is what happened very recently is the NZUSA office, the Fed office, made an agreement with StudyLink that they would not campaign against any of the StudyLink changes. That didn't come to us, that didn't come to FedEx. I'm pretty sure OUSA didn't agree to that, did you? No, OUSA didn't agree to it either, so we are going to campaign against it. But it goes to show the lack of transparency and the lack of anything really. And the other one is proactive as well as reactive campaigning. How many of you have actually seen something from NZUSA other than VSM in the last 2 years, or the time that you've been studying? Has anyone seen anything? Oh, you don't count, you're executive. Oh, you don't count, you're a sister. Oh, dude.
No, none
settle.
of you.
But that's a very small number. They're not putting students first. I believe that we do need a national voice. We really do need a national voice, but we need a national voice that's going to fight first and foremost for students. To ensure that you're not getting ripped off by StudyLink, so to ensure that things like this national government doesn't cleanse the tertiary sector and turn it into a rich man rich and poor man poorer system again. Do what's right by you guys. That $90,000 can actually go back to you guys and do a hell of a lot of difference. If we are not members from NZUSA, the MPs will see us. That I can guarantee. As soon as we left NZUSA, we started getting meetings with the different MPs across the country. And we are of the belief that students come first. I'd like to see NZUSA go back to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Now, at this point, we've heard a few opinions on why we should leave NZUSA. I'd like to invite up anyone who would like to either speak to whether it should be decided by student referendum or not, or people who believe that we should stay in NZUSA. But Imogen, and then Dan, and then Tim.
I think I'll just take a less extreme views than the people who have already spoken. I just wanted to put a couple of things into context a little more, because it kind of sounds like NZUSA have been doing nothing, and that they spend a whole lot of money on administration. But as it's already been mentioned, NZUSA's core functions are lobbying and advocacy, and unfortunately that costs money, and that was all administrative money. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, I think that hiring a lobbyist is totally ineffective, they're illegitimate, and they are not invested in student issues, whereas people who have been elected by student representatives on a national level would have been students themselves and are invested in the things that we're facing. They're not contracted, they're there because they care about it, not just because they're being paid. Okay, so NZUSA, at our last conference, we recently elected 2 co-presidents, one of whom OUSA endorsed quite heavily. Harriet as well wanted one of the co-presidents that was elected to be elected, because he's been quite receptive to changes that people have been, making noise about these kind of things for a while, and he's been, quite receptive to that. He's actually chairing the internal review that NZUSA is undertaking at the moment, which is just started recently. It's been, at last conference we directed for the internal review to look at not only what NZUSA is doing but how they are doing it. So I think that will address some of the concerns people have raised about the Office on Lambton Quay and the money spent on campaigns and that kind of thing. OUSA was a big pusher behind the internal review. I think that's fair to say that OUSA and OUSA have, kind of initiated this really. I think it would be totally unhelpful and no point, kicking up a fuss about things that they've been doing if we're going to turn around and withdraw anyway. I think it's probably it's more transparent and accountable to our members if we see through the outcome of this review and then make a decision. I think they've shown that while we may have had to push a little bit hard for them to see that they needed to make any changes, they are looking at it now, and I feel like if we just pull out, then is there any incentive for them to change at all? I think we should wait until we find out what the internal review committee has to say before we say, right, we're leaving, that's it, we're taking our 90k, you can get it. Something else I want to talk about, we've also talked about last conference. There's been about the 90k again. We've also discussed changing the ways that the levies work and the voting structure to make things more equitable between associations, which we actually got to talk about, which has never happened before at any other conference I've been to, and I've been to 5. So that was a step in the right direction as well, I think. I think it's really easy for us to sit here and complain that they're not doing anything, but I think it's really difficult for them to make a change when they only change when we ask them to. They're member driven. It might be a slow process, but I think it would be wrong for us to pull out before we actually know what the outcome of the internal review is, which I'd like to reiterate that we initiated. Finally, national representation is important. We all understand that. So we are here as OUSA executive members to meet with people around the university to advocate for students in Dunedin, for our OUSA members in Wellington, in Christchurch, in Southland. NZUSA Federation officers are there to meet with MPs to advocate for students on a national level. They're the ones who will be talking about student loan changes and limited entry, how that affects students. We are the ones who are discussing the policy with the university here. So I guess, in summary, I think we should look at the bigger picture here. We should wait for the outcome of the internal review of NZUSA before we say we're going to pull out, since we initiated it, and that we should be looking as well as at our ability to fund representation if VSN comes in as well. How much money will we have? If we can't afford it, maybe we should leave. If we do have the ability to pay for it, and maybe in a different form, then we should do it. So I think that's all I've got to say about that. Please just, if you have any more questions, please come and ask me, or I've got to run away soon. But yeah, I think just making that sort of consideration about the position that we're in at the moment. I think it would be unfair to pull out when we still haven't found out the direction that they want to take, which we initiated.
Imogen, a quick question from me actually. What's your opinion on how it should be decided? Should the executive decide to pull out, or should it be put to the student body through referendum?
This is a difficult one that we've debated at exec a couple of times. I think that it should be up to students to decide. If it was, executive tend to know a lot more about NZUSA and how it works, but when you put NZUSA in the context of national representation, and they're the people who are responsible for meeting with MPs and talking about limited entry and VSN and student loan changes, then I think students should be able to decide. If it was me, I would want to know I would want to have a vote as to whether my local association wanted to be a member of my national organisation.
Okay, thank you. If you'd like to do a handoff to young Daniel in the second row.
I'd pretty much just like to echo what Imogen said. I mean, I believe that the best way of fixing NZUSA is by working within the system rather than throwing your toys out the cot and running away, because ultimately that will actually achieve nothing. NZUSA will not be fixed if we don't actually try to work within the system. I would also like to agree with Imogen wholeheartedly that the OUSA hiring a lobbyist up in Wellington carries with it sort of no legitimacy, no sense of mandate, and that it can never ever sort of duplicate the mana that comes with the New Zealand English Teachers Associations. So yes, I mean ultimately yes. I mean NZUSA has many faults to it, but we really need to work within the system.
Thank you. And Tim?
I'd actually like to agree with Megan. We do need more transparency, accountability, and for them to stop wasting our money. But the way to do that isn't to withdraw 10% of their mandate and a lot of their funding. The way to do that is, like Dan said, to work within the system and try and make it better without running away and saying, this isn't going to work. What we need to do is, as Imogen said we've done, we need to drive the change from within. And we need to use our power that we have within. OUSA, I believe, is the biggest or the second biggest voting bloc within NZUSA. Why don't we use that power?
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have anything to say? James?